Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to Drawing with Mr. Hutch. We're into our Christmas season here, so this is going to be another Christmassy drawing. Today, we are going to draw the Grinch, and we're going to use some of the strategies that we've been talking about thus far in terms of our shapes and our wireframe and our proportions and stuff. So today, you're going to need a pencil and an eraser. And that should be it. All right, let's get started. So for this one, I'm gonna just flip my page the long way because I'd like to draw him a bit taller. The camera's gonna make this a little bit tricky, but you know what? Actually, let's just stick to what we do. We know we can fit it in this. I'll just make him a little bit smaller. For you, though, I'd like you to draw portrait style so you can use more of the page. This just works better with my camera. All right. So first things first, we're going to just do a simple pose for the Grinch. Okay, so we start with kind of our gesture line that becomes a wireframe. So if this is his spine straight down like this, he's got a leg and a leg, shoulders, arms, arms. Okay, he's kind of got his hands on his hip. That's the pose we're going to go with for the Grinch today. All right. His arms and limbs are a little bit exaggerated, you'll see, so we'll talk about that as we go. So if this is our wireframe, okay, then let's talk about some of the shapes that we're going to require. Now, his head is a funny kind of egg-shaped, really pointed. Okay, so start with a shape like that and a little line of symmetry to kind of help us out to see where he's kind of looking. All right, he's got a short little neck, tiny little cylinder there. All right, and his shoulders are very narrow. His shoulders barely come out past his cheeks. So there's his little shoulders, right like that. He's got very, very skinny arms. Okay. Remember, these are just our planning lines. We're just kind of getting used to the shapes. Now, he has a funny pear-shaped body. Okay. So we're going to kind of come down in a motion like that. And then the most of his body occurs below his hands. Okay, so we're going to give him a big pear shape like that. All right. Now you can see my wireframe, I had his legs starting there. His legs are going to start a little bit lower, so that means we're going to have to extend them out. And his legs are quite long, and he really has no definition to his knees. Okay, so I'm just going to erase where he had his legs. All right, and again, we're just going to, he's got his thin legs, and we're just going to kind of break out those shapes. Okay, main part of his hand could be an oval, and then he's got his fingers curled like this. All right, so we'll just make one finger just so we kind of have a good idea of the space that he's going to take up on the page. So I would prefer that you drew with your sketchbook the other way. I'm doing this because I'd like to try to keep it all on the page for you. So you can kind of see the whole drawing as we go. All right, I feel pretty good about those basic shapes. Now I think we can start thinking about some of the, we've got the big shapes. Now we can start to break down smaller shapes. Now, let's start up in his head. Now, I don't have this shape quite exactly how I'd like it. It's almost more of a diamond shape. So it kind of comes up from his neck out to his cheeks, let's say right there, and then almost to a point. Okay, and then he's got his little tuft of hair at the top. right? Now, inside of his face, he's got like a muzzle, almost like a dog's muzzle, and that takes up most of the middle part of his face right there. And where that muzzle meets the rest of his face, that's where his nose is. Okay? And we'll come out here. Now he's furry. Everywhere is furry. So when we end up doing our outline drawings, we're gonna do it a little bit of sketchy, a little bit of a kind of less smooth lines, a little more texture to those lines. All right. Now on his collar here, he's got a shape that ends up being this kind of rough fur collar that kind of comes out all along the top there. Right? Now let's move into his hands and let's secure or make some of these shapes a little bit more detailed. Okay, so that's the back of his hand. And you see kind of the fleshy palm part of his hand here. And that connects down into his pinky. Okay, so let's draw his pinky like that. All right, and then behind the pinky, we extend out another finger. His fingers are very pointy. Okay, and then this, you should be able to see below his pinky and then into his side there. All right, and then another finger. And one more pointed out like this. And then just a little hint of his thumb down there. Okay, sharpen my pencil a little bit. Now let's move over to his other hand. And this hand kind of is a little bit more behind his body. So let's draw this body line out in front. Okay, and then this is going to be coming from behind. So here's his wrist and the fleshy part of his palm. Curled up is his pinky. And then he's got his ring finger. And you can see the next finger. And then just the bit of his pointer. There we are with his hands. All right. Let's go down to his feet and adjust these shapes a little bit. Okay, so it's a tapered leg, which means it starts thicker at the top, and as it comes down to the ankle, it gets thin. And his feet are interesting. They almost are reminiscent of an elf's boot. He doesn't have toes. He just has one little kind of tuft at the end of his foot. Right? And then we can bring down this other leg, tapered leg. And same idea. Just a bit of a elf boot, elfish looking feet. All right. So I think we've got some pretty good start here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in, I'm going to darken up some of the lines that I'd like to keep, along with the lines that I've already started to darken, and then we can erase some of our planning lines and get into more of the details. Okay, so just follow along or go at your own pace, and we're going to just find the lines for the rest of his body. And we can add in the fur kind of details later if you want to just keep these shapes smooth for the time being. All right. So I think that I'm ready to erase the sketchy planning lines. All right. That's good for now. Now let's get into his face and let's get a little bit more detailed in his facial features. Okay, so we've identified where his nose is and kind of this muzzle idea. Now up just above his nose is you're going to see the point of his nose or the nub of his nose. You're going to see just the bridge of his nose kind of goes up like that. Now his eyes are interesting. They look like half circles, but it's because he has such a large brow or a deep looking brow. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just draw a couple half circles for his eyes. And they come right in to the bridge of his nose there. Half circle there. And half circle here. All right. Now above that, let's add in the shape of his brow, or almost like a bigger, thick eyelids. All right. And he's got quite thick eyebrows. Okay, so we can add a shape in there. All right. So we've got his eyeballs and his pupils going to be kind of up in the top there. Okay. I'm just going to give him a little bit more space on the sides of his eyes. Okay, so I'm going to all right. This eyebrow. All right, we've got his eyes in there. Now this kind of muzzle almost looks like a dog, kind of comes down on the sides there, and he's just got a tiny little mouth. And for this, he's making that classic Grinch. I'm not very impressed with what's going on. Look. Okay. Sharpen off my pencil a little bit. I didn't leave enough room really for his hair at the top because it kind of goes up a lot longer. So you'll have hopefully more space for his little foof of hair there at the top. All right. And remember that he's got a chin, right? Starting to come along. All right, I think we're almost ready to add some value now. A little bit of value here and there, which will make it come to life. So let's add some value underneath his eyes. So remember, your eyes kind of sit in the bowls of your head. He's got kind of a repeating stripy pattern. Okay. Throughout his whole fur. I think I'm actually going to bring out his cheeks just a little bit more. And that's where we're going to put a little bit of that kind of jaggedy textured line to make it look a little more Grinchy. All right. And let's darken up these eyebrows. Okay, let's give him a little bit of value underneath his chin. His chin would leave a shadow on his chest a little. Okay, remember we got this furry tuft around his neck. So let's give the tuft a little bit of shadow beneath. Makes it look like it's sitting on top of the rest of the fur. And we can add some jaggedy fur lines along his arms as well. This is giving a nice feeling of texture to the Grinch, right? He is a furry animal, excuse me, or being. Inside of his palm, a little bit of shade there. Underneath his hands would be in some shadow. Okay. Fingertips pointing up, so they'll have a little bit of light on them. Let's go with inside of his arm, slight shadow there. Okay, we get a slight shadow going on this other side. And we're going to say that the light is kind of coming from the right to the left. So we're going to give him a bit of a shadow here along this side of his body. Okay. Now, like I said, he's kind of got this interesting kind of stripy pattern throughout. So let's just do a gentle line of value like that. And it's just really, on the movie, it just looks like different values of green. So if we just go in with our pencil, give him those stripes. Oh, by the way, this is the most recent Grinch, the Grinch that is voiced by Benjamin Cumberbatch. A little bit darker down here, full shadows, and a bit on the inside. Outside, make those legs look like they're three-dimensional. Okay. Just going in, fixing up things as I see them. A little bit more shadow on this side of his face. Give a little bit of more fur texture to his legs. All right, a little bit of value on the instep of his foot and underneath where there would be a shadow. So he's not just floating. Blend out that shadow a little bit. You guys can't see that. All right. So there we go. There is my version of the Grinch. I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't seen this Grinch version of the Grinch yet, make sure you check it out. It's quite good. So there we go. It's a final look at the Grinch with Drawing with Mr. Hutch. At this point, you can add in some color, go in with your greens, and then you can even give it a little outline with your pigment liner or your ultrafine Sharpie. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed Drawing with Mr. Hutch, the Grinch. I'll be back tomorrow with another Christmassy drawing. Thanks for tuning in.